Good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather with Sim again. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. And in today's weather forecast, we're going to be taking a look at the tropics, and we do have a bunch of areas to be watching closely, at least for some development. But the part that we're most concerned about is this area of development that is near the Caribbean and as well as parts of eastern Mexico, and that will likely head into the Gulf of Mexico by the time we head into the end of this week, which we will be talking about. We are also going to be talking about a huge cool down that looks to be moving on through by the middle of this month, and some of the models do want to point that out, which does bring some pretty good agreement that something like this may happen by the time we head into the middle of October. So if you guys are new here to the YouTube channel, or if you haven't pressed that subscribe button already, make sure to go down below and press that subscribe button down below. Again, I do appreciate you guys getting me up to 500 subscribers before fall. You did meet that goal, but I do hope you guys will continue to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that would be awesome. And of course, like and as well as leave any comments, questions, or concerns down below if you haven't already. But let's first go ahead and take a look at the tropics, and our most concerning areas is this one over here, but especially this one over here in between eastern Mexico and parts of the Caribbean. And this is likely going to head towards the northwest and kind of take a much similar path like Helene did, where this could very well sneak in between Cuba and parts of eastern Mexico and then pretty much end up in the Gulf of Mexico, which is something to keep an eye on. But keep in mind, though, that whenever a tropical system has already moved over that area, those waters do cool pretty significantly, and Helene just made those water cool down quite a bit after re-intensifying before it made landfall in Florida, which means this system probably isn't going to be as strong, and we'll talk about why also. But this is still going to be something to keep an eye on, as those chances are still likely to increase by the end of this week. But as of right now, there is a 50-50 chance of a tropical depression during the next 7 days. And then, like it said, we got a bunch of systems in the middle Atlantic Ocean. These don't necessarily need to be watched, especially because these are likely going to be heading right out to sea, including the tropical depression 12 that has already developed. This one's probably going to take a much similar path to Joyce and as well as Hurricane and Tropical Storm Isaac. It was just a hurricane earlier, but it actually did die down to a tropical storm. But like I said, these systems are definitely going to take a very similar path, as they'll turn around and head back out to sea. So nothing really concerning about these ones. Can't rule out some impact to land way farther to the north, but we're not concerned about those areas as of right now. Let's now go ahead and take a look at what these models want to show as that tropical wave does get farther to the north and ends up in the Gulf of Mexico. And as you guys can see, more than likely by the end of this week or even into the beginning of next week, we will likely start to see this tropical wave, which has a 50-50 chance of development, like I said. But by the time it gets a little bit farther to the north, the GFS model wants to show it pretty disorganized, okay? Which is good news, because we already saw plenty of rainfall from Helene, and I mean, that was a really, really historic hurricane for how many impacts it had. But thankfully, this one is much more disorganized and only bringing some widespread showers and maybe even a couple of thunderstorms to parts of the deep south. We can't rule out some severe weather with this system, because sometimes that's what we see with these, smaller disorganized waves that get close to the coast. So that might be something to keep an eye on in the future, but as of right now, that does remain uncertain still on how strong this wave will get. And of course, if we'll see severe weather, that even remains more uncertain. But we'll keep an eye on it by the time we head into the end of this week and perhaps into next week. So we'll definitely need to be seeing how strong and where exactly this one starts to go. And then for this model, this is another model, by the way. This is the Canadian model, the CMC model. This model wants to show the tropical wave going pretty close to, the peninsula of Florida, so pretty much right around where Orlando is located. So instead of making, some impacts along, Mississippi, Alabama, and perhaps Louisiana, this one wants to show it heading more towards the Florida region. So that's one of the reasons why we do need to also be keeping an eye on this, is because Florida could definitely be getting hit, once again by some very heavy rainfall. And like I said, the good news is that this doesn't look to be as impactful as Helene, or at least isn't expected to be as strong. But this could still bring some widespread showers, some heavy rainfall, and like I said, even a couple of thunderstorms likely to develop. And we can't rule out severe weather farther down, towards Florida, if this wave does actually hit parts of Florida. So that's something to also be keeping an eye on by the time we head into the end of this week and perhaps at the beginning of next week. And this one actually does show it heading into the Gulf of Mexico just a little bit earlier compared to the GFS model, but they do show it about the same time. Let's now go ahead and talk about this cool down that is expected to move on through by the time we head into the middle of October. This is October 13th using the second European model. I like to call it the second European model because it's the AIF European model. So, it's another, model that's pretty new, but we like to, use it a lot for things like this. And this model does want to show a lot of cold air surging down into parts of the plains, Midwest, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, even as far northeast as New England, back into even parts of the mid and deep south, where we could definitely see a massive cool down move on through by the time we head into the middle of October. So this is something we do need to watch for. The bad news is that over here out to the west, this probably won't really be bringing you guys much in the way of cold air. Those higher elevations might experience a little bit of it, but overall you guys are, mostly going to be seeing those warmer temperatures, unfortunately, which we like to cause a positive PNA. So that's something to, be watching over here out to the west, is well above average temperatures. And we'll also talk about another reason why we are expected to see above average temperatures. This model does want to show a little bit of cold air surging in across the western states, especially places like Washington, Oregon, and California, which, could definitely experience, some cold air, especially up there towards Alaska, which is, I'm pretty sure that's about where it's going to be coming in from, and pretty much surging all the way down the western border of Canada and into parts of the western United States, which, is something to keep an eye on also, but that does still remain uncertain. Let's now go ahead and take a look at the GFS model. This is the American model. This one does not want to show as significant of a cool down than that model does show, but it still does bring some decently strong cold air all the way down towards, some of the similar places like the plains, Midwest, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and even parts of the deep south could definitely see some, cold air as well. This one does want to keep that warm air across all of the East Coast, unfortunately, and shows much, much above average temperatures across parts of the western United States. It's just the extreme western coast, so places like extreme western Oregon, all the way down towards coastal California, where we might see a little bit of below average temperatures, but all of the west will really likely see that super, warm air move on in. And so, like I said, this is definitely not going to be good for you guys out west, especially because you guys are expected to stay on the drier side of things, while over here in the central United States still got a pretty good chance of a cool down by mid-October, and possibly staying maybe cooler in some areas, and maybe even a little bit warmer by mid-October in some of these East Coast areas. But from what we know so far, I do think this cool down could definitely bring a little bit of cooler air to parts of the East Coast too as well, but the start of it will at least bring that cold air to parts of the central United States and possibly continuing into the East Coast. Let's now go ahead and take a look at the Climate Prediction Center, starting off with the 6 to 10 day outlook. This is anywhere from October 5th, which is 5 days out from now, all the way out to October 9th, and that's both for temperatures and precipitation. And starting off with precipitation, we do expect there to be well below average precipitation across a really big area of the United States, heading from the West Coast all the way back into parts of the Midwest, where well below average precipitation is now becoming a likelihood, and that does include all the plains, parts of the Midwest, and even into almost all the Rocky Mountains too as well. And I mean, this is the biggest area of below average below average precipitation I've seen from the Climate Prediction Center in quite some time. So I mean, this is huge, guys. This is really huge. And what's bad about that is that we can also expect there to be well above average temperatures across all the western United States, and that's what the Climate Prediction Center wants to show for the rest of this week and even into next week. So this is definitely not good news for you guys out here to the west. That could bring some droughts, that could bring some wildfire chances, so that's definitely not good news for you guys. However, closer to the East Coast, we do expect there to be some pretty good chances for at least slightly above average precipitation across most of the East Coast area. Florida has a pretty good chance of seeing a lot of rainfall, especially from this wave that we're watching for, like I said, which we just talked about in today's video. So we'll definitely continue to watch the East Coast to see if it does get hammered with more in the way of precipitation. But as of right now, I think we will probably just be seeing above average precipitation across most of those areas. And if we look a little bit later, this is anywhere from October 7th all the way to October 13th, and as you guys can see, we do expect there to be again below average precipitation across a lot of these areas, and that actually could definitely continue to shift east towards the Ohio Valley this time, as those areas along the west coast look to at least be experiencing a little bit more in the way of precipitation, because we're expecting right near normal. And then again, along the East Coast could definitely see some areas of above average precipitation. So we'll definitely need to be keeping an eye on it there. And again, a well above average precipitation and, temperatures once again across parts of the western United States. And I didn't meant to say above average precipitation, I meant to say below average precipitation, so well below average and well above average temperatures likely for parts of the western United States, and then below average temperatures could definitely start to surge into parts of the eastern United States by the time we get closer to the middle of October. So that's something to also be watching for too as well, but that does still remain uncertain. Let's now finally go ahead and look at our forecast in the future for tropical development. And as you guys can see, from October 2nd all the way to October 8th, we got some pretty good chances of development across parts of the MDR region, which is the main development region, and even parts of the Gulf of Mexico and perhaps the Caribbean, where we do have greater than a 40% chance of development. So we'll definitely continue to watch for more development as we head farther into October. And same goes from October 9th all the way to October 15th. Still got some decent chances for development in the MDR region. Not as high, but still could definitely see a few waves develop into some tropical depressions by the time we head closer to the middle of October. And same goes for, parts of the Caribbean and especially parts of the Gulf of Mexico, where we could definitely start to see, some pretty good development too as well. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. But thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy today's weather forecast. Like I said, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe if you haven't haven't already. And don't forget to leave any questions, comments, or concerns that you guys have to leave down below. You know, if you got any questions about if this will impact Florida, feel free to leave something like that down below. And of course, you know, make sure to stay tuned for my winter forecast, which will likely be coming out at the end of this week or maybe even next week. We'll have to see where I get to on my winter forecast. You know, but great thing to do would, you know, be to stay tuned for it, and, you know, even click that notification bell so you are notified whenever I do go live or even do my winter forecast. Like I said, make sure to stay tuned for it by subscribing and hitting that notification bell, and I hope you guys all have a great day.